Guys, welcome to the Healing Trail podcast, and right here is where we talk about hiking and mental health. My name is Frank Hernandez, and I'll be your host. Come hang out with us, hike, and see if we can heal the world. Guys, good morning. My name is Frank Hernandez. I'm with the Healing Trail podcast, and this is...
Kelsey, what's up, guys?
Kelsey, good morning. Tell us where we're at. Tell us what we're doing today.
Good morning. We are at the beautiful Papago Park. It's a nice overcast day. It's a little high 70s, which is wonderful. We're super excited to be walking today. And today we're talking all things proactive mental health. So we're talking about mental health for youth athletes. I specialize in athletics and business professionals as well. So more on the mental performance and mental health side. We're going to be talking a lot of different topics today, and I'm super excited to be here.
Yes. All right. Good job. Guys, let's hike and let's hear what Kelsey has to say because it is important.
All right, let's get. All right. So I think it's really helpful to understand how I got into this kind of field. And, growing up, I came from a big athletics family, topics of conversation at dinner were always what's going on with your teammates, what's going on with your coaches. So sports has just been part of my life. And, I think once I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, this ultimate big question, right? I didn't know. And I just knew I wanted to help people. I wanted to serve people. I thought maybe healthcare, just didn't really know. And oddly enough, I was failing a chemistry course. And so I was decided that the path I was on, nutritional sciences, wasn't going to cut it because chemistry and we didn't get along too well. And so I looked at the majors that my university had to offer, and sports psychology was one of them. I had never heard of it before. I loved psychology class. I love anatomy and physiology, loved all of those things. And so it was combining a lot of things that I hold near and dear to my heart. And so that's how I kind of got into this field, was just stumbling on actually failing something and learning there's a different path. I was just being redirected towards something more meaningful for my life. And so I got my bachelor's degree in sports psychology, which was in the kinesiology department. So I have a background in strength and conditioning, physical science as well. And then I got my master's in performance psychology so that I could help more professionals. And then thought, those degrees weren't enough. I'm going to go for one more. And I got a degree in master's in clinical mental health.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been a wild ride. I just kind of finished up all my education last year. And so now I'm really at the culmination of putting everything together and seeing where that takes me. And so I'm at a really exciting point in my career where I've been doing a lot of different part-time things. And now I'm trying to put them all together and help serve a population that I think is really, really needed,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelsey, for someone who's out there right now that doesn't understand what physical psychology?
Sports psychology.
Sports psychology. Yeah. Could you kind of give us your definition of what it is?
Yeah, for sure. So sports psychology is looking at the mental and psychological aspects and also socio as well of playing sports. And so what happens in your mind, what happens in your community, how is your support system impacted, and just all the different things that go on in your mind when you're playing sport. And when I got my degree in performance psychology, it kind of just branches that out, like firefighters, military professionals, dancers, people that work in the performing arts, anyone that has any part of performance, part of their career. I mean, even public speaking can be considered performance.
Wow.
So things like performance anxiety, confidence, emotional regulation, leadership skills, communication, a lot of overlap with mental health things, but it's specifically focused on improving your performance. So sometimes people come in with a certain problem. I'm lacking confidence in this area, or I crumble when I'm under pressure, or I feel like my identity is really wrapped up in my sport. That gets into a little bit more of the mental health side of things. But anything to help someone perform better from a psychological perspective, using psychological tools, or also called mental skills, like visualization, mindfulness, meditation, positive self-talk, stuff like that.
Good.
Yeah.
A lot of good information. I'm gonna have to sit down and dissect all this. This is good.
Yeah.
Kelsey, you're extremely knowledgeable.
Oh, thanks.
How does these different degrees and areas of education that you succumb yourself to, you absorbed yourself in, how do these different areas of education put you on a trajectory to where you want to go?
Yeah, I think I didn't really know where I wanted to go, to be honest, when I was younger, when I first found my career. And, I found this major right before my junior year of my college degree. And I went from a student that was really, really struggling to a straight A student for the first time in my life.
What?
And I was like, okay, man, the universe is telling me like, this is easy to study. Like I enjoy it. I'm doing extra studying. I've never done that before in my life. So it became really easy. And I also come from a family of entrepreneurs. So that's been a big part of my family message, is the best boss is to be your own boss and to be able to provide a work environment that other people want to work in as well. And being a leader, I've always kind of considered myself a leader. When I was growing up, I just gravitated towards that role. And so I knew I wanted to do something entrepreneurial with helping people, serving people. And I don't really want to be the face of anything. I really just want to provide the service.
Right.
And if I can grow a company that allows the service to be provided to more people on a wider scale and get people resources for these things, like that's what lights me up. So I'm recently partnering with a company that does mental health. We're building a company, I should say, that's proactive mental health and mental performance.
Let's go.
Specifically with athletics and business executives as well. And so that's been amazing because I feel like all of it's really coming together just in this year of 2025. I've been talking to the people that are, founding this company for years now. We've been talking about it. So I'm really excited to see it all come together.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What are some things that you'd like to talk about today? What are some things that one of the good segues questions is, some things that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
We are hiking. This is mental health, so that
Yeah.
opens the door for a lot of things. But
Yeah.
what makes this unique is that you have your own experience and your own set of skills and insights.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think something I'm really passionate about is the overlap between mental health, physical health, the mind-body connection. And I think, obviously we're moving our bodies, we're talking mental health. These things are intrinsically interlinked and you can't have one without the other. And so I'm really big on, making sure that we're recovering, we're taking time for our body, we're doing things that are, restorative in nature and not just pushing it constantly. I think, we can get into this grind of more productive, more performance, whatever it may be. And it's not always more. And so looking at the fulfillment side of things and what meaning we derive from the pursuits in our life is something I'm really passionate about, and making sure that it's holistic. That's how I kind of like to talk about the work that I do. It's holistic. We're talking about emotions, we're talking about your social life, we're talking about your physical health, and of course your mental health as well. So I think it's, in that way, I'm not one side of it only. So I think that's something I really enjoy talking about for sure.
So one of the things, maybe you can help educate me on this, Kelsey. One of the reasons why I do this on a Sunday morning is because, any morning really, but anytime I'm out here with a camera, it's kind of like, a hassle to hold the camera. It's a hassle to schedule all this stuff.
Yeah.
But the reward is being able to come out here and physically move our bodies and talk about important topics. Are you able to provide us any insight on why that's so important?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, I think the communication between our body and our brains is always happening, whether we're aware of it or not. And so, even doing hard things is something like you're kind of talking about here, Frank, is it's a little bit of effort and intention that you have to put in order to make this happen. And doing hard things is so beneficial for our brain. And so there's another link that I really like focusing on too, is just neuroscience and how neuroscience impacts our everyday life. And so, there's a part of our brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, and it's part of your brain that basically grows when you do hard things. So when we do things that we don't want to do, this area of our brain gets bigger.
Yes.
And sometimes we can think of this as the willpower part of our brain, and the will to do things that we don't want to do. And I think so many times, we listen to the comforts of life and what's familiar, whether it's a familiar relationship, a familiar coping style, that's not really helping us, but it just feels good because it's natural to us. And so being able to recognize, doing hard things has such a big benefit. And, tapping all of this into the neuroscience, I find clients really, connect well with that because it's they can like latch onto something tangible and concrete instead of this like abstract kind of idea.
Okay. Doing things that we don't want to do grows this part of our brain.
Yeah.
And what are the benefits of growing this part of the brain?
Oh man, there's so many. So I think when we grow this part of our brain, it helps us do hard things in the future, and it grows our capacity to stick with it. And you know, we talk about this idea of like resilience, of like bouncing back, but really it's bouncing forward. How can we learn something, adapt from, got some geese flying overhead, and to be able to say, okay, this part of my brain is actually going to help me do hard things in the future. So it's like really paying it forward. We also get this huge rush of different neurochemicals when we do hard things that feel really good, right? That dopamine that we get when we do something really challenging. It's such an easy life that we live in terms of how easy dopamine is for us to get, and for us to actually create harder challenges for us to gain that momentum and gain that dopamine in a natural way is so much more fulfilling. But it takes so much concerted effort because it's so easy to get it otherwise. So I think when we set our lives up to, like, you know, whether it's doing a hard thing, of doing a breathing exercise when you just want to freak out, or talking to yourself differently in a tough moment when normally you just want to spiral to self, you know, whatever defeat, you know, you're kind of finding yourself in, taking that moment to pause and to choose a harder path, it takes a lot of effort. Our brain wants us to save as much energy as we can. So when we take that hard path, we're also paving the way forward for our future life and also the people that are around us. And I'm a big fan of this idea of like favors for future self. How can I set up my life to have favors for my future self?
Favors for my future self.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
It's actually something my husband taught me.
Husband.
Yeah, I know.
What's
It
his
was
name?
great. His name's Trevor.
Trevor. Hi,
Yeah,
Trevor.
big fan of Trevor. Yeah, he taught it to me, and you know, because I was sometimes would struggle to do these mundane things, and thinking about errands or laundry or all these things is like a chore, right? And we're actually getting benefit from doing those things. We get benefits from our mental health from doing errands and from doing chores and from doing all these things. And so when you can kind of see it like that, like, oh man, it's gonna be so much nicer to come home with the laundry basket empty than it coming full. So I'm gonna do the hard thing right now for a favor for my future self. And just these little kind of things that you can kind of rewire in your brain, it makes these new neural pathways that make it easier to do it in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kelsey, what are your thoughts on one of the things that comes to mind from hearing you speak right now is we have so many things in our daily life that sort of bring these immediate, easily accessible flows of dopamine. And doing the hard things, would you say delays that? How would you say that in terms of doing the hard things in its relationship with the flow of dopamine?
Yeah. So another kind of maxim that I really like is easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life.
Yes.
And so when you do the hard choices now, you're pushing that dopamine, you're delaying it. And so when we have really tough habits where we're trying to start exercising, trying to start meditating, trying to start doing anything that's hard that we know we should do, maybe reading, but we don't really want to do, doing the hard thing now, we have to remind ourselves of the delayed gratification. What is the benefit down the road? So what's the downstream impact of me getting this? Well, I'm going to feel better if I eat this salad versus eating, you know, this fried chicken later. I have to remind myself of the delayed benefits versus if it's it's an easy choice, eating the donut or eating something, the easy choice to sit on the couch longer, you have to remind yourself of the delayed consequences. So what's the downside of doing this in the future? Right now, the immediate reward is, well, it feels good. I get this rush of the dopamine when I eat the donut. But delayed, my focus is going to be shot for the rest of the day. And so reminding yourself of the delayed consequences or the delayed benefits can help you kind of remind yourself of why you're doing something on that pursuit.
So for like someone who's barely getting into like delayed consequences, how can I grasp that concept? And then how can I, like, what's a real life example for like me to practice delayed consequence? That's kind of like a lot right there. But I also want to ask you too, like, how can I give value, or maybe you can emphasize some of the benefits of delaying consequences. How can I, if I'm a person who doesn't know what that is, how can I value that?
Yeah, so I think with anything, it's important to start really, really small and recognizing that when we have an urges don't last very long. And so if we can sit in that, that mindfulness of, hey, this is how I'm feeling. I'm just going to recognize what's happening internally. Maybe I'm feeling a little tense. Maybe I'm feeling stressed about something that's coming up. And so I'm going to go eat this donut, or I'm going to go binge watch TV because I don't want to think about what's actually going on in my life. So a big part of it is just mindfulness of like, okay, what's really going on here, and sitting in that discomfort and teaching yourself to sit in that discomfort. And again, maybe it starts really small. Maybe it's, oh, I really want another cup of coffee. Hold on. Let me just sit in that moment for a second.
Which I do from time to time.
Yeah, and just be like, okay, hold on. Do I really need the coffee, or am I just trying to reach for something because of XYZ? And really being mindful of our internal state, and then giving us some self-compassion in that moment too, I think is really important. But it's something that you train. So start with something that feels really low level, whether it's, oh, should I watch another TV show? Hold on, can I just pause it at the end before it auto plays another one?
Yes.
Like, let me just create some space here. Let me just create some space. And maybe it's, okay, I really want more seconds. Maybe let me just wait 5 minutes and see if my stomach can catch up to like, actually, I am full. And so there's all these little shifts that we can make in terms of delaying things very gradually. But I think it takes intentional effort. And another big part of this too that we haven't talked about is your environment. Your environment shapes so much. And so the people, the places, the things, all the things that are in your environment are going to impact your behavioral choices. And if we're not paying attention to this and we don't have awareness on this, it will continue to destroy everything, that all the progress that we are trying to make. And so this, we can go off on so many different ways with this, even just with technology and our phone, and that's a big part. Oh my gosh, with the work that we're doing now with proactive mental health, is technology boundaries and having digital boundaries for both families and for the youth that we're working with, because our brains are still developing, especially when we're talking about youth athletes, adolescents, and teenagers. Their brains are so much still developing, especially the front of our brain, that prefrontal cortex, the part that helps us suppress, impulses, the part that is decision making, the part that is forward thinking. Those parts of our brain are not developed yet. And so then we give these kids this technology that is designed to pull their attention and get that instant gratification and get that dopamine from social media or just being on your phone in general. And so teaching families and kids different ways that they can have some more boundaries on technology is something that's really important. And I also want to help parents feel empowered by that, so that they too can recognize the impact of technology. Like, let's have phone-free, dinners, and recognizing that that's hard. It takes hard work to do that. So that's just kind of one facet of it, but that helps your mental health so much the more you're aware of the impact our environment has on what we're doing.
Yeah. Kelsey, let's walk.
Okay.
I have so many questions. Was there? Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
or was there something else you wanted to touch on?
Go for it.
I have a question. I have a million questions actually, but I'm going to ask one of them.
Okay.
So I'm trying to put myself in a position where I know nothing.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Frank is putting himself in a position where he knows nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do this because it allows me to absorb fully what you're saying without my own prejudice or my own opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And also allows me to be teachable, right?
Yeah.
I'm a student first.
Yeah.
So what is environment, and why do I need to be mindful of what my environment is?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So your environment is anything that is around you, and your environment can also be the people that are around you. Anything that's in your physical space is how I would really describe your environment. And so when we have certain people, whether they're positive people or they're negative people, that has an impact on us internally. And so the same way with the foods that are in our house, or the different technology or different things that are in our house. And so we want to be mindful of, and by mindful I really just mean pay attention to the things in our environment, the people and the things and the places that we are, and how it's impacting how we feel, how it's impacting how we perform. Like if you're studying for an exam and you have candy all over the place, you have papers all over the place, you have a TV on, you have video games on over here, you have music on, your brain is just like, oh my gosh, how can I do anything? How can I focus, right? And so there's so many different things pulling at us. So we have thousands and thousands of sensations being brought into us right now. Even in this environment, there's so many things being bombarded our nervous system. And so being able to control what we're paying attention to has a huge impact on how I'm even having this conversation. Let's say I'm paying attention to all the things around me, and I'm paying attention to the rocks, and I'm paying attention to all this, and I completely missed that Frank even asked me a question, right? So where our attention goes, our energy flows. And so being very mindful of that, then we can control some things. So, okay, if my attention is on all the papers and on the TV and on the music and on the video games, I can't focus on the paper I'm writing, right? So being able to say, okay, I'm going to turn those things off. I'm going to let my brain have less to focus on so I can do a better job at what this is right now. And so that's a big part of what we do with athletes, is just really making sure that our focus is dialed into the right thing, because that's where their energy is going. And sometimes it's just even the awareness of this, like how much are we feeding those negative thoughts instead of just performing the task right at hand. And a lot of this is educational too for the people that we work with, and then it starts with skills. So you got to build awareness before you can do anything.
Where our attention goes, our energy flows. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. What is like, let's talk a little bit about some of the work that you're going to do.
Okay.
With teens, right? Teen athletes.
Yeah, so we feel like there's a big lacking in the market for mental health, specifically for youth athletes, starting in adolescence up to teenage years.
That's so amazing.
It's, it's mental health, like, thank goodness in some ways for COVID, because it has really taught people how important mental health is, and you cannot ignore it, right? And I think when you're kind of alone in your thoughts and alone in your house and you're in lockdown, you come to face with reality of a lot of things, and a lot of communication patterns kind of come up during COVID too. And so I think that was one of the blessings of the whole experience, or the pandemic, I should say, because it taught people we can't just take this for granted. We have to prioritize this. And so people started getting into therapy in record numbers, and therapists had wait lists that had never had wait lists before. And so I think people really understood, like, this is important, we need to invest in this. And so mental health, and from a business perspective, from the economy, has just been booming, right? There's so much money being poured into mental health right now. And so being able to find a demographic that still needs help can be sometimes challenging. And so a big part of my field, because I started in mental performance and then went to mental health, a big part of mental performance field is a lot of these professionals target elite athletes, like D1, athletic players and Olympians. And, we've worked with those people too. And I'm not saying that they don't need help, they absolutely do. But there's just a lot of practitioners trying to help those people. And I think there's so many more people that play athletics just for the camaraderie, for being able to put your kid in an activity where they're active and they're around people and they're learning character skills. Like, I think there's a lot of people that are even bench warmers that need this stuff too, right? And so you don't have to be an elite athlete to need mental health proactive skills. And so that's where we're really coming at this, is, both targeting the athlete, but then also targeting the family, because they need support too. And man, I've talked to so many parents over the years of, well, what do I do when my kid's not playing? What do I do when, I'm pissed at the coach, and I don't know if I should tell the coach about it or tell my kid about it, and how do I handle, the car ride home after a win or a loss,
Wow.
I've never thought of it. What do I do when my kid is, wants to be perfect? And I recognize I do too. And what does that look like? And, I see, whether it's working with youth athletes, the families, or when I'm doing work with adults now, and they're like, man, anytime I didn't perform well, I looked over at my mom and she just looked away. And that crushed my self-worth, right? Wow. And this is someone that's in their 50s saying that. So I think when we understand the implications of all of these things, early prevention is essential, because we can really stop a lot of those things from happening, and give parents and families the grace that it's okay, this is normal, but let's do something about it. Let's do better.
I would never consider these types of things to exist prior to this conversation. So I often put myself in a place of like, okay, what am I absorbing right now?
Yeah.
Versus what I didn't know before.
Yeah.
And this information is totally happening in the world around us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in your reference to D1 athletes and professional athletes, what I hear is they have more resources than these younger kids or younger athletes.
Yeah.
Go bench warmers too.
I know, totally. I mean, yeah, and one thing I love is a lot of the stuff that we do is really just life skills, but it's packaged in athletics, and so kids are more receptive to it. And so, you know, if we teach people communication skills, how to communicate with your partner, your teammates or your coaches, and how to take constructive criticism, you know, those things are helpful later on when they're in the workforce or when they're in a relationship with their significant other, and teaching them the skills on how to regulate your emotions. What does that look like? Like, what are emotions? How do I have my identity not wrapped up in my performance outcomes, both for parents and for the kids? And so then that helps them later on in life understand these things, and just exposure early on is something that we're really passionate about.
Yeah. What can you give us? What information? Because you know you got some amazing things coming up, guys. For those of you that don't know, she has some amazing things that are going to really help the world in areas where it needs support. What information can you give us about your business that you're doing?
Yeah. So right now, my main efforts are on curriculum development, and so I'm super excited about this because, like I said, I feel like I'm pulling a lot of different life experiences into this curriculum. So a big part of it is I want to find the overlap between mental health and physical health or physical fitness. And so, you know, we talk a lot, take care of your fitness. You walk outside, right? You drink lots of water, you eat well, you sleep well. These things are just normal. Like, this is how you take care of your fitness. Well, we want to approach mental health in the same way. And so we're really looking at this from a mental fitness standpoint. So that is what all of our curriculum is based off of, mental fitness.
Yes.
And so we have 4 different pillars for our mental fitness. And this is what all of our curriculum will be developed on, all of our programs that we do, one-on-one coaching, our support groups that we do, and we'll provide support groups for both individual athletes and also families. So like having like a mom support group for who have kids in sports is going to be something that we're going to provide as well. Organization based too, but everything is going to be based off these pillars. So we have 4 pillars. The first one is mental core strength. So just like your core is everything in terms of your body. If you have a weak core, you're going to have weak hips, you're going to have problems upstream and downstream. And so this is what's going to help you keep upright. This is what's going to help prevent you from falling. This is going to have so many different benefits for your back, right? Your core is everything. And so is your mental core strength. So this is self-awareness, identity, confidence, and resilience. This is also going to be emotional regulation. And so we're going to use the mental core strength to set up everything else. And every pillar is going to build on the other one. So that's the first one, mental core strength. The second one is going to be mental flexibility. I really like this one because it works off the work from Susan David on emotional agility. And so looking how we can adapt through our emotions and our social environment. So we were talking about social environment as well, our relationships. How do we like maneuver around team dynamics? You know, what does this really look like? How do we support each other through team dynamics? And another part of the flexibility
I'm gonna have to join your program.
Yeah, you're all board, all game. Another part of the flexibility is what we were talking about earlier, the digital boundaries, and what that looks like from a family perspective and also an individual perspective. And then the third one is going to be mental power. So this is when we think of traditional mental skills for performance, it's going to be in the mental power section. So that's going to be attention, focus, bringing back other like arousal, energy management, different like visualization. That's where all of the really like typical, I guess I would say, mental performance things will be in the mental power section. So once we have a core, once we have flexibility, then let's really power it up. And then the third one, which is really important, is the mental endurance. So what does this look like sustainability? What does this look like from the long term? How do we have a psychologically rich life in the long term? What does holistic health look like in the long term? And so making sure we're setting people up for later in life, not just in this current season, but how are you going to use these things later on? And so each one will build on the next, and we have, 90-day programs, we have 3-month or 4-month, 5-month, we have different kind of length programs that we're developing. But we work with people one-on-one, group setting, in person, virtual, and then support groups and organization-wide things. So sometimes we'll go into an organization, let's say like a youth hockey league, and we'll go in and do like a 30-minute mental performance, mental health focus workshop, and then they go on to another skills-based thing. So it kind of depends on where we're at, but we're building a lot of really exciting curriculum right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. If the curriculum turns out anything anything similar to this description you gave, it's going to be amazing.
Thank you.
It's
I've
gonna be
been working.
amazing.
Yeah, I've been working pretty hard on it. So, that's been the main thing that I'm working on. And we are Mental Health Awareness Month is coming up in May, so we have a couple months for that, and we're going to do a bunch of free workshops, which I'm really excited about. So we're going to go to different school administrations, youth athletic like clubs, recreational clubs, any organization really that wants to help promote this message of proactive mental health instead of crisis, and I think, of course, we'll still be trained to do that because we have therapists on board, but we're really focusing on the preventative side of things, both from an organization and an individual level, which I think is really important because there's only so much you can do on an individual level. So we really want to target multiple different levels of the ecosystem of sports and performance.
Kelsey, if I'm a parent and I bring my kid to you, what are some of the things that I can sort of use to gauge results?
Yes, good question. So one thing that we're going to be really specific on is assessment. And so we want to get an assessment of their overall mental fitness levels at the onset, which is going to look a little bit different from traditional psychological testing. So it's going to be based on those principles. And with each of the pillars, something that I really love is how, this is actually something I was just working on, is how to know if this area needs help. So it looks like, screaming matches, or it looks like, shutting down after this, or it looks like, what does it look like when that pillar isn't strong? And then what are we going to do about it? And so as a parent, what can you do? You can remind your kid X, Y, and Z. And so we're going to have both early identifying signs of, hey, this is when you need to be aware if these things are happening, this area needs some help. This is what it looks like when it's improving. And then also on the back end, how you can help support them. And so it kind of depends on the different levels. But, let's say like after a performance, like, it doesn't go well, the player makes a lot of mistakes and they think, I'm the worst, I'm terrible. It's a very like a fixed mindset kind of mentality. What can a parent say in that moment? And giving them actual verbiage that they can use so that they feel empowered too. They're not just stuck like, no, it's not that big of a deal, because then that minimizes it. We don't want to minimize their experience, but we also want to let them learn from it. And so giving parents tools to do that as well is really critical.
Is there any aspect of your program that's going to allow like we talked about environments, that includes the environment includes parent and child?
Yeah, so we're going to, especially during Mental Health Awareness Month, we're going to do a lot of workshops, as many as possible, honestly, with both parents and with kids, because we want the parents to see what this is all about as much as we want the kids to see it. And so, like I was talking about earlier, those 4 pillars, we have a ton of skills that go under each of those. I would say, each pillar probably has, I don't know, maybe like 20 skills that we're working on.
Oh, man.
So it's
go.
sometimes we can pick and choose which one. So for instance, one of the easiest ones, like the mind-body connection, like we have this exercise, which I really love. We get people's heart rates up, so we get them doing jumping jacks, high knees, okay, feel your pulse. Everyone's kind of like, okay, I can feel it. We're activating that sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
And then we teach them a breathing exercise to get it down, so they can see in real time, oh, wow, that works. So whether it's something that's happening when you're on the playing field, when you're before a school test, we want to give people the tools and practice them. That's a big part of what we do. We're not just going to talk about it, we're going to practice them. That's how sometimes it might differ from other approaches. It's just that we practice it in real time and then we talk about it later. So that's just one example of how we want to involve the parents and the kids, because we want everyone to benefit from these tools. Like, we're teaching them to youth athletes, but the parents for sure can benefit from them too. And a lot of times parents are just doing how they were taught, right? And they know maybe there's a better way. And I hear it from parents a lot, like, I know I can be doing things better. I know I can respond better when they do X, Y, and Z. I just don't know how. And so we want to help parents say, okay, now I know how. Now I know how to do better. I want to do better. Now I know how. And so that's something that we find we're a lot of passion in there too.
One of the things I hear is my mind draws or sums up is verifiable metrics.
Yeah.
This is more than just,
yeah.
hey, let's try a couple things with you.
Yeah.
And let's try to just maneuver you in a way that we will tell you that will produce results. This is actually, hey, this is what's happening. Let's measure like your blood, your heart rate. Let's do the breathing exercise.
Yeah.
Let's measure the heart rate, and let's verify that this actually works.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the beauty of where the technology overlap is in this too, because we want to be able to implement things like neurofeedback and biofeedback to give us that real-time data.
Let's go.
Because I think it is hard. I mean, in mental health and mental performance as well, a lot of these things are not concrete and it's hard to measure them. And I think that has been one of the hardships of this field specifically, because businesses want things that work, right? And so they want numbers and say, how is this specifically going to help my employees? How is this specifically going to help my athletes? Give me the numbers. And so trying to make metrics for this is really important. So that's where the assessment is going to be really important, because we're going to have some pre and post and during assessment to say this is how it's actually working. And I like to do for athletes like this idea of like implementation, what's it called? I'm blanking on the name, implementation or implementation plan or something like that. But it's basically like, if blank happens, I will do blank. So for example, for an athlete, if I had one girl who's a teenage girl, and she really struggled with anytime the ref gave her a foul, she just lost it and it ruined the rest of her game. And so what we started tracking was, if the ref gives a call I don't like, I will do what? I will take a deep breath. I will remind myself to get the ball. I will take a future approach instead of sulking, right? And so then we tracked, out of this game, what percent would you say you did that? 80%, 70%. And then over time, throughout the season, we have, wow, look at these numbers. They started with 30s and 40s, and now they're up into the 80s and 90s. Yeah. And yes, that's self-reported, but still we're getting some metrics that normally we wouldn't have. So that's just one example of things that they can do on their own that we don't really even need to do, but I really want to leverage AI as well to help get more data so that they can feel more in control of the progress they're making.
Yeah. If Frank was to task you, Kelsey, with coming up with the ideal teen student athlete that would maybe who's struggling the most, and if you were to describe this teen athlete to me that would benefit from your program so much, like one of the harder cases, how would you describe them?
Well, I think if we're talking about one of the harder cases, I would say resistance is a big one. And, I think with teenagers especially, sometimes girls and guys, they're resistant for the sake of being resistant because they don't want to seem uncool, right? And so this is a big thing. You got to roll with that resistance using techniques like motivational interviewing and things like that. And so I think the hardest athlete, I had one athlete that was so resistant that, resistant up to a level because they still got on the phone, right? But they were resistant that they didn't want to go on camera. And so I worked with this athlete and I was on camera the whole time, and I still don't even know what that athlete looks like. But they showed up and they learned, right? And when I asked questions, they gave their best answer they could. And when I showed them videos, they paid attention and they were able to articulate, this is what I learned from that video. So I think the openness to just learn is crucial. And if someone, doesn't really want to learn and just wants to be resistant and isn't ready for it, then they're not ready, And I think a big part of my career has been learning to not chase the people that don't want it, but to chase really the people that do and who are already open and receptive. So I think when people feel like they can't manage their nerves, I think that like the anxiety that comes with performance is probably one of the most common things I see, as well as lacking performance. So how do I not make my confidence determined by how my outcomes are? So what we call yo-yo performance. If I'm doing well, my confidence is good. If I'm doing bad, my confidence is bad. And so that's probably some of the most common things we see is confidence, and then managing nerves under pressure. And so I think if those people just are, maybe there's a better way. If that's all the thought is maybe there's a better way, let's get them in, because this is also when neuroplasticity is like the best. I'm like, okay, you could change anything about your life if you want to right now, and everyone can, but especially when you're in youth, it's just so much easier to change your ways. And so like I was working with an athlete who was, kind of resistant to this kind of thing. I just don't know how this can help me, and he was struggled with overthinking a lot. And, you know, I was like, well, why don't we just see how it goes? Why don't I teach you a couple skills, both physical skills, things that you can do behaviorally, and then also cognitive or mental skills, what you can do differently, to think differently. And I'm like, if you had skills to manage this, would that be helpful for you? And they're like, oh man, yeah, that would be so helpful. And so when you can kind of frame it in a way of like, hey, this is the problem that you have. I want to teach you things so that this doesn't occur as much. And if it does occur, you know what to do.
And these are kids who you say, hey, I have some tools that will help you.
Yeah.
And these kids are receptive to it. They're
Yeah.
saying, hey, that would absolutely help
That would
me.
help me, yeah.
Amazing.
And so I'm like, let's just give it a try, you know? And sometimes you got to start slow and build that rapport and build that trust. And, you know, I think a lot of kids too are like, is this therapy? You know, is there something wrong with me? Because there still is a stigma in some, you know, some areas even with some parents, there's a little bit of a stigma. So what we do is not therapy. It's preventative mental health, mental fitness. Just like we're going to teach you actually things about your sleep and how that impacts your mental health and how your nutrition impacts your mental health. We're going to do the same thing with like how you talk to yourself impacts this, how you think about your emotions and how you like, you know, what your kind of thought processes are, how that impacts your confidence. And I think it's just willingness just to hear us out, even if it's just for a workshop, even if it's just for 10 minutes, just willing to hear how this might benefit you and might help you with some of the things that every human goes through. And that's another big part, is normalizing these things, because I see it so much with kids. There's so much shame, and it's, you know, it's such a sad thing to see these young kids have so much shame already. And so normalizing what they're going through and then getting them in support groups where, you know, Tony over here is talking about the same thing. Even though he plays baseball and you play hockey, you guys have similar things that you're struggling with, and we have tools that are going to help you. That can be really empowering for kids to be in a group of their peers that relate to them.
Okay. Nice. This is also a good way to sort of support and invest in this child's future in athletics.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, this is something that they can have on their resume.
Yeah.
And then, hey, I don't know, in this resume they can include their metrics of improvement.
Yeah, totally. And it depends like what level we're getting them at. But I think, you know, when we look at like moving to the next level with athletics, it's not really like a huge difference in physical skills or technical skills. It's the mental game. And I mean, even like I work a lot in baseball, so if you look at like an MLB pitcher that's not performing well, it's not that they just forgot how to pitch or their accuracy just went down because their skills faded. It's all mental. And so when you can look at that, if this is something that the professionals are using, they have reset routines and they have different things that can help them kind of cope with the challenges.
Hello.
Sorry.
Okay.
You're good.
To cope with the challenges of sport, you know, this is something that the pros are doing. And so why not start with you now? And I think that's why a lot of parents like it too, because it's really life skills wrapped up in athletics. And so kids are more interested in learning how to be better at baseball than how to be better at life. When you're a teenager, you just don't really care about that. And so trying to teach them how to care about something that they already care about and something they already value is really important for us too.
One of the images that just popped into my mind, forgive me if this is like total left field, is the Karate Kid. When Mr. Miyagi was trying to teach him to paint the fence.
Yes.
And he's like, I don't want to paint the fence. I don't see how this has anything to do with you teaching me karate.
Totally.
He's like, paint your business and what you're doing would help bridge the gap between him understanding how painting affects the karate learning.
Correct.
And then the struggling, like the sort of like struggling behaviors in between.
Yeah, totally. No, that's a great way to describe it, because it's like slowing down and being intentional about the things that we're doing. And you know, there's some things that we as coaches are going to recommend that parents have already been saying for years. And I tell parents that when I start working with them, like, you know, I'm going to tell your kid something that you've been telling them for years, and they're going to say, oh my gosh, Coach Kelsey taught me this thing. And I don't want you to take offense to that.
Parents will roll their eyes and be like, I've been telling you that.
Exactly. I'm like, it's going to happen. It always happens. So just know, like, how they get the message at this point is not as important as them getting the message, you know? And sometimes it just takes someone that is from the outside, that has no stake in their personal life or their family life, and just wants them to be happier, healthier, and perform better.
Yeah. Nice. I'm excited to see the type of work you're doing and the type of work you're going to do. And I know that I've had a lot of family members who had kids in athletics. For me personally, I couldn't do sports because I would get so angry I wouldn't listen to nobody.
Yeah,
So my mom was just like, you're not playing sports because you don't want to listen to nobody.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to play sports.
Yeah.
I went to the streets.
Yeah.
Would I have been better in sports? Probably, if we would have had Kelsey around, right? And what your company's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think too, it's while we're targeting athletics, we also want to help anyone that's willing to learn about this stuff. So if you're in the chess club, or you're in speech and debate, or you just want to get better at making friends, whatever it may be, like, we have skills that can help you. And I think we're just trying to hit the demographic that we see the biggest demand for, that doesn't have help as youth athletics, but we also want to help a lot more people beyond that. So we're not turning anyone away also.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I hope you're going to be able to provide us some links and information so that people can reach you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We just launched our landing page for our company. It's called Blend Wellness, or sorry, the website is called Blend Wellness. The company is called Blend, just Blend. And we're basically blending mental health and mental performance. So it's not choose one or the other, they're integrated. And that's where the mental fitness comes in. And so we'll definitely give you the links for all that good stuff and all of our socials.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Kelsey, that was amazing.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
I'm definitely gonna have to go back and like watch all this stuff again and kind of like dissect it all and absorb it more.
Yeah.
There's a couple things happening while I'm on these hikes. There's me, considering everything in my mind, and then everything that like Kelsey's saying, and then there's a lot of me projecting forward of like what could be and how this affects other things. So this is definitely beneficial. Good stuff. We're at Papago Park, guys, in Phoenix. Is this Phoenix?
I think this might be Tempe. Yeah, we're right by ASU.
Okay.
Yeah, ASU is right behind us. So, and that's another thing too, is, and just go on another little rant if I can, Frank.
Of course you can.
I think that when we work, because I've worked with D1 players, I've worked with collegiate, I've worked with professional athletes, and a big part that a lot of them struggle with is the transition to the next level. And so, man, the amount of college athletes that I talk to that do it for a year and then it just becomes too much and they quit their sport and they transfer. It's heartbreaking to see that. And so we also want to help people prepare for the next level so that the transition isn't so harsh, because if the transition is a little smoother, they have a little bit clearer expectations, then they're able to navigate it better. Plus with the mental skills and already knowing how to take care of yourself and ask for help when you need it, and understanding a lot of those things earlier on can really extend the length of someone's athletic career or not. And that's okay too. And so I think that's important too. Not everyone wants to play D1. Not everyone wants to be an Olympian. Not everyone wants to play at the professional level. And they can still benefit from these things that we're doing. And so that's a big part of our mission is to help people with that transition if they want to move up, or just do the best that they can with the level that they're at, even if that's in the rec league, to still be the best that you can at this level and be able to like understand your emotions so that they're not controlling you. And man, if I could have learned some of these things early on when I was a kid, I think I probably would have played a little bit longer and I would have had more fun doing it and put less pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And, I don't regret any of it because it led me to the position that I'm in right now. And I just know that if more kids had access to the things that we're talking about and wanting to teach, I mean, it has the power to really change how people perceive themselves and how the relationship that they have with themselves too, at a young age. And it's formative years to be teaching people how to have a better relationship with themselves and with others.
Yes. Good. Good stuff.
Well, thanks for having me, Frank. This has been awesome talking about it. And I hope people have learned something from this conversation and walk away with something that can be beneficial.
Nice. So as part of us, we have to have you back on again.
Yeah.
And we have to maybe get one of your students,
yeah.
one of your
athletes,
athletes on here to kind of give their
fun.
testimony too as
yeah,
well
totally.
in the future.
Yeah.
Kelsey, what are some final thoughts?
Oh man, final thoughts. I think just how important it is to pay attention to yourself and to give yourself the love and care that you need, and to to thrive in life and not just survive. And I think that's a big part of what the mission that I'm on. I don't want people to feel like they're just barely scraping by and barely surviving through life. I want them to really thrive and derive meaning in the discomfort and bringing a sense of peace from getting to know yourself better. And I think it's just such a beautiful gift that you can give yourself to have a better relationship with it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys, this is Kelsey. How do you pronounce your last name?
I recently changed it. So I got married, so I'm in the process of changing it right now. So my new last name is Walstrom. Walstrom.
Guys, Kelsey Walstrom. I butcher people's names. That's why I have a history of butchering
No,
people's
that's
names.
good.
Guys, Kelsey Walstrom. This is the Healing Trail podcast. Till next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.